She's gone, man. I can tell. She's gone.
In Gwinnett County, Courtney Owens, a devoted mother and a woman beloved by her community, was preparing to embark on a new chapter after what seemed like an amicable breakup. But just days later, the peaceful footsteps at the car dealership she co-owned turned into chaos. A masked figure stepped inside, a rifle glinting under the light, and a single cold-blooded shot ended it all. She could never have imagined that the person behind it all was the same one who had promised to help her start anew. What really happened to Courtney was the promise to help her begin again, merely a facade for a murderous plot. Gwinnett County, Georgia, a bustling suburb northeast of Atlanta, was where Courtney Owens had spent nearly a decade building her life and career. In this tight-knit community, everyone knew Courtney, the 34-year-old woman with a warm smile, cherished by family and friends. She was known for her hard work and reliability, traits that propelled her success in the traditionally male-dominated car sales industry. Customers flocked to Royal Court Motors not just for quality vehicles, but for the dedication and sincerity Courtney brought to every transaction. The dealership was co-owned and operated by Courtney and her longtime boyfriend, Stony Williams, aged 41. On the surface, Williams projected the image of a successful, polished, and charming businessman. He had a natural ability to win over clients, knowing how to listen and persuade. Many in the area regarded him as a visionary entrepreneur who helped make Royal Court Motors one of Gwinnett's most reputable dealerships. However, after years together in both love and business, Courtney and Stony's relationship came to an end. In late November 2022, they decided to part ways peacefully, without heated arguments, optimistic. It was a carefully considered decision, born from the realization that they were no longer compatible. To help Courtney start anew, Stony agreed to give her $15,000, a substantial sum that anyone would consider a generous and kind gesture. For Courtney, this seemed like the beginning of a new chapter in her life, a chance to gain full independence and pursue her own dreams. In those final days of November, no one could have predicted that this seemingly kind parting gift would unwittingly open the door to a tragedy no one could foresee. As the chill of Georgia's approaching winter set in, events were quietly unfolding that would forever alter the lives of everyone involved. In early December 2022, Courtney Owens' life began to shift in ways she could never have anticipated. Though her breakup with Stony Williams had been peaceful, subtle tensions were starting to surface beneath the veneer of civility and feigned friendship. Courtney and Stony continued their professional relationship at Royal Court Motors, at least outwardly. They met daily at the dealership, discussing deals and clients with a professional demeanor. Those around them believed they had handled the breakup maturely and civilly. But beneath this facade, Courtney was harboring a significant decision she had not yet shared with anyone. She wanted to leave the car sales industry entirely. After years of working in a male-dominated field, facing constant pressures and challenges, Courtney felt it was time to pursue a new path. The $15,000 from Stony was not just financial support, it was her chance to start from scratch in a completely different field. Courtney began exploring new career opportunities, from opening a small shop to working in customer service. She even considered returning to school to earn additional qualifications. She kept these plans private, sharing them only with her closest friends. But one growing concern was weighing on her. Courtney began to suspect that Stony was monitoring her. This wasn't baseless paranoia. There were clear signs that made her wary. Her phone occasionally behaved strangely, its battery drained faster than usual. Unfamiliar apps appeared, and, most unsettlingly, Stony seemed to always know where she was and what she was doing, even when she hadn't told him. Courtney's biggest suspicion was that Stony had cloned her phone's SIM card to track her messages and location. This wasn't implausible for someone tech-savvy like Stony. She recalled times when he had borrowed her phone for one reason or another, leaving it unattended longer than necessary. These small details, when pieced together, painted a troubling picture. Courtney chose not to confront Stony directly about this. Instead, she began changing her habits, avoiding sharing personal information over the phone and limiting his access to her devices. However, these changes didn't seem to escape Stony, who was always observant and sharp. Tensions between them escalated when Courtney mentioned the possibility of suing Stony over issues related to splitting assets and rights in the dealership. Legally, she had the right to demand a fair share of what they had built together, but Stony was clearly displeased with the idea. He began reacting more sharply, though he still tried to maintain composure in front of others. December 8, 2022 marked a terrifying turning point in this story. That evening, Courtney was at a friend's house in Fairburn, about a 30-minute drive from the dealership. It was a quiet area, with small, charming homes surrounded by greenery. Courtney had decided to spend the night there to escape the tense atmosphere at home and work. Around 9 p.m., as Courtney and her friend sat in the living room watching TV, a loud bang suddenly echoed from the front of the house. Startled, they quickly turned off the lights and cautiously peered through the window blinds. They saw no one. But the next morning, they discovered a bullet hole in the front wall of the house. Courtney immediately called the police to report the incident. When officers arrived, they confirmed it was indeed a bullet from a rifle, fired from a considerable distance. Fortunately, no one was injured, but it was clearly a deliberate act of intimidation. In her statement to the police, Courtney mentioned a name, Draco. She explained that she had recently felt like she was being followed, and she suspected a man named Draco was behind it. However, she couldn't provide much information about him, only that he had some connection to Stony. What heightened Courtney's unease was Stony's reaction when she mentioned the incident, though she tried not to share details about the shooting with him. Stony seemed to already know about it. He asked overly specific questions, revealing knowledge of the event that he shouldn't have had if she hadn't told him. This incident fueled Courtney's strong suspicion that Stony might have hired Draco to intimidate her. Was this related to her threat to sue him, or was there a deeper reason she hadn't yet grasped? These doubts kept her awake for nights on end. Courtney became more cautious, changing her daily routine and avoiding secluded places. She also considered reporting her suspicions about Stony to the police, but worried she lacked concrete evidence. Deep inside, a growing sense of unease told her a storm was approaching. On the afternoon of December 9, 2022, Royal Court Motors operated as usual. The crisp Georgia winter air contrasted with the warm glow of the showroom's golden lights, illuminating the gleaming cars. Courtney Owens was busy with end-of-day tasks, organizing paperwork and tidying her workspace. At 2:29 p.m., the glass door of the dealership swung open. A figure dressed in black stepped inside, their face obscured by a mask. Cold eyes scanned the room, and their hand gripped a rifle with chilling determination. The fluorescent lights reflected off the metal barrel, creating a haunting image. Courtney looked up from her desk, her eyes widening in shock and terror. In that moment, she recognized the man. Despite the mask, his build, movements, and especially his familiar gaze left no room for doubt. "Draco," Courtney exclaimed, her voice trembling with a mix of fear and despair. The witnesses present at the dealership, some customers and employees, froze as they watched the scene unfold. They clearly heard Courtney call out Draco, a name that would later become a critical clue in solving the case. Draco advanced toward Courtney with slow, deliberate steps. No words were exchanged. There was no negotiation or explanation. His eyes conveyed only cold resolve to carry out his assigned task. In her final moments, Courtney seemed to understand everything. She realized her suspicions about Stony were correct, that the stalking and the shooting in Fairburn were not random. Her eyes reflected not only fear of death, but also the pain of betrayal by someone she had once loved and trusted. Draco forced Courtney to kneel in the middle of the showroom. The act was cold and deliberate. Showing this was no impulsive or coerced action, it was a premeditated execution. A gunshot rang out at exactly 2:30 p.m., shattering the quiet winter afternoon. A single 5.6-centimeter rifle bullet was fired directly into the right side of Courtney's head. She collapsed instantly, blood pooling on the white-tiled floor. Draco didn't linger. He swiftly left the scene, leaving the dealership in a state of horror and despair. Panicked witnesses called for emergency services and police, but it was too late. Courtney Owens, the 34-year-old woman with a life full of dreams ahead, died at the place where she had worked for years. The crime scene left behind a single 5.5mm rifle casing near Courtney's body. This small piece of evidence would become one of the most critical clues in the investigation, linking this murder to the shooting in Fairburn just a day earlier. Courtney Owens' death was not only the end of a life, but also the beginning of a complex investigation that would uncover dark secrets and heartbreaking betrayal from those closest to her. The wail of ambulances and police sirens pierced the quiet Snellville area just minutes after the gunshot. Panicked witnesses had called 911 immediately, and Gwinnett County police quickly arrived at Royal Court Motors. The scene they encountered was a car dealership turned bloody crime scene. Detective James Morrison, a seasoned officer with over 15 years of experience, was assigned to lead the investigation. He quickly determined this was not a robbery gone wrong or a random crime. The precision of the killer's actions, forcing the victim to kneel before shooting, and the fact that nothing was stolen all pointed to a targeted assassination. The investigation team meticulously collected evidence. The 5.56 rifle casing found near Courtney's body was carefully bagged for ballistic analysis. Her phone was seized to examine recent calls, messages, and location data. Every corner of the dealership was photographed and documented in detail. During witness interviews, a crucial detail emerged. Everyone present at the scene confirmed they heard Courtney call out Draco before the shot was fired. This indicated the victim knew her killer, at least by name. One witness, Robert Martinez, a 45-year-old customer who was there to look at cars, provided a detailed description of the suspect. He described a tall, thin man, about 30 years old, wearing a black hoodie and dark jeans, with his face hidden by a mask. The suspect moved confidently and decisively, showing no signs of hesitation or fear. The investigation took a significant turn when Detective Morrison contacted Stony Williams. Stony claimed that at the time of the incident, he was on a FaceTime call with Courtney discussing work. According to his statement, he heard the gunshot over the phone and Courtney calling out Draco before the call abruptly ended. This information drew the investigators' attention to the name Draco when questioned about him. Stony admitted that Draco was a friend of his. According to Stony, Draco's real name was Wesley Vickers, a 29-year-old man with a criminal record for assault and identity theft. Stony claimed Vickers was on the run due to an outstanding warrant and frequently contacted him for money. Police quickly verified this through criminal databases and the phone number Stony provided. They confirmed that Wesley Vickers indeed had an active warrant for violating parole conditions and a complex criminal history. Another critical breakthrough came from investigating the Fairburn shooting the day before. Ballistic analysis revealed that the casing from the Fairburn incident matched the one found at Courtney's murder scene. Both came from the same rifle, strongly supporting the theory that the same person was responsible for both incidents. As the investigation delved deeper into Royal Court Motors, a former employee named Sarah Chen came forward with troubling information. She revealed that weeks before Courtney's murder, Stony had asked her to lie to the police about the dealership's security camera system. According to Sarah, Stony instructed her to say the cameras were inoperative if anyone asked. Strangely, Sarah knew the cameras were functioning normally at the time. Upon further inspection, investigators discovered that the dealership's security camera system had been completely dismantled the day before Courtney's murder. Stony had personally removed all cameras and storage drives, claiming he wanted to upgrade the system. This action severely hindered the ability to capture the entire incident. Detailed analysis of Courtney's phone also yielded significant findings. Data showed that on the night of the Fairburn shooting, Stony had contacted Courtney and even recorded footage at her apartment. This raised questions about whether Stony knew about the plan to intimidate her in advance. Moreover, GPS location data from both Courtney's and Stony's phones revealed a suspicious pattern in the weeks leading up to her murder. Stony always seemed to know exactly where Courtney was, even when she hadn't told him. This reinforced Courtney's suspicion that she was being tracked. After 4 weeks of intense investigation and evidence collection, police finally located Wesley Draco Vickers. He was hiding in a cheap motel on the outskirts of Atlanta when arrested. Vickers initially refused to cooperate, but under the weight of ballistic evidence and witness testimonies, he eventually confessed. Vickers' confession shed light on the entire plot. He admitted that Stony Williams had hired him to intimidate Courtney, initially to teach her a lesson. However, when Courtney recognized him and called out his name at the dealership, Vickers panicked and shot her to conceal his identity. With this confession, police began pursuing Stony Williams, who had fled Georgia shortly after the murder. The manhunt would lead them to Texas, where Stony was attempting to hide and evade the consequences of his actions. After 3 months on the run, Stony Williams was finally apprehended in Texas in March 2023. His arrest occurred as he attempted to secure a job at a Houston car dealership under a false name. The FBI tracked him through facial recognition cameras at airports and public locations. When extradited to Georgia, the two perpetrators in Courtney Owens's case faced the justice system in starkly different ways, reflecting their distinct roles and attitudes in this horrific crime. Wesley Vickers, the man who directly killed Courtney, was relatively forthcoming during the investigation and trial. From the moment of his arrest, Vickers confessed to his actions and cooperated with police, providing details about the case. He described how Stony approached and hired him, the payment he received, and the execution of the plan. In contrast, Stony Williams's demeanor was calculated and evasive. Throughout his interrogations, he steadfastly denied any involvement in Courtney's death and hired a skilled legal team, appearing to have prepared a meticulously crafted defense strategy. At Vickers' trial, his defense attorneys argued that their client was merely a hired gun coerced by Stony Williams. They claimed Vickers was only hired to intimidate Courtney, and the situation escalated beyond his intent when she recognized him. However, the prosecution forcefully rebutted this argument. They presented evidence of the matching bullet casings from the Fairburn and murder scenes, proving Vickers had prepared and stalked the victim beforehand. Most crucially, forcing Courtney to kneel before shooting her demonstrated a deliberate, cold-blooded act, not an accident or impulsive decision. With overwhelming evidence, Wesley Vickers was convicted of intentional murder and sentenced to life in prison without parole. The verdict reflected the severity of the crime and the ruthless demeanor he displayed during the act. For Stony Williams, the situation was far more complex, although evidence clearly pointed to him as the mastermind. Proving his initial intent to kill Courtney was not entirely straightforward. The prosecution may have lacked irrefutable evidence that Williams intended for Courtney to be killed from the outset, rather than just intimidated. Recognizing this, Williams's lawyers negotiated a plea deal with the prosecutors. In March 2024, Stony Williams accepted an Alford plea for conspiracy to commit murder. This special type of plea allowed him to not admit guilt, but acknowledge that the prosecution's evidence was sufficient to convict him. Ultimately, Stony Williams was sentenced to 10 years in prison. With 11 months already served since his arrest, he would serve an additional year of house arrest and the remaining time under conditional probation. The stark disparity in the sentence's life without parole for Vickers and only 10 years for Williams sparked significant public controversy. On a spring afternoon in 2024, in the cozy living room of the Owens family, the phone rang. Patricia Owens, Courtney's mother, answered and heard the familiar voice of Detective Morrison. "We have good news," he said with a tone of relief after months of tension. The police informed Courtney's family that Wesley Draco Vickers had been arrested and confessed to killing their daughter. More importantly, the investigation revealed that Stony Williams was the mastermind behind the crime, having hired Vickers to carry out the heinous act. Stony's motives became clear through the investigation. He was unhappy with how Courtney wanted to end their relationship and was particularly enraged by her threat to sue him over asset division and dealership rights. For Stony, the idea of Courtney succeeding independently without him was unbearable. Courtney's family expressed relief that justice had been served, at least in part, Patricia shared. "We know nothing can bring Courtney back, but knowing the truth and seeing the guilty held accountable has given us some peace." Yet the pain of loss remained raw. Courtney's young son, now growing up without his mother, is being raised by his grandparents with boundless love. The family established a scholarship fund in Courtney's name to support single mothers aspiring to start businesses. Stony Williams's criminal past was further exposed during the trial. His record included prior convictions for theft and, more disturbingly, endangering a child. This information further revealed the true nature of the man Courtney had once trusted and loved. The Gwinnett community, where Courtney lived and worked, held numerous memorials in her honor. Royal Court Motors, after being sold to a new owner, installed a plaque commemorating Courtney Owens as a strong, dedicated, and loving woman. The case of Courtney Owens has concluded legally, but its lessons linger. Her story serves as a warning about the dangers of domestic violence and toxic possessiveness. It also underscores the importance of trusting one's instincts when feeling stalked or threatened. Though justice was served, many remain dissatisfied with the disparity in the sentences. Wesley Vickers, though the direct perpetrator, may have been merely a tool in Stony Williams's hands. Nonetheless, the justice system has delivered its verdict. Courtney's family hopes her story will help other women recognize warning signs and seek help in time. Though Courtney is no longer here, her legacy of courage, love, and resilience will live on forever.